Hey everybody, my name is Jonathan McMillan, and I am the owner and founder of Be Better Than Average. I recently re-released my book, Better Than Average Goals, my guide to setting and achieving goals that change and save lives. What I'm doing right now is I've had the privilege of having several mentors in my life, and I'm just taking the time. I talk with these people several times a week or several times a month, some of them several times a week, and gets my mind right. Oh, my phone is doing its own thing here. Excuse me. But one of those mentors and friends is Barry Overton. Barry is well, what would you say you are in Organo Gold, Barry?
I'm a Ruby consultant, which is one of the leadership levels in the company. Been with the company, it'll be actually 3 years next month, and had quite a bit of success, quite a bit of growth in a very rapid pace. I don't attribute it, to me. It's more so being able to have a support team and other leadership that I was able to plug into with Organo.
Okay. And you say a very rapid pace, and that's part of the testimony that I give when I talk about you is we met just over 3-4 years ago, or maybe under 4 years ago, over three, through a mutual friend of ours, and he was thinking that we would be a good connection on another business venture, which just for whatever reason didn't work out. And then I remember you approached me about Organo Gold, and you were just getting started. You were still working your other job. So I guess that actually, if you don't mind sharing that, how did you get started on the journey that you're on now?
I spent 26 years in law enforcement as a Denver police officer. I was there for 21 years. But even with that, I've always had aspirations of having my own business. So during the course of 21 years with Denver, I've been in concert promotions. I had a catering business, a barbecue company, home securities business, real estate. I've been doing for 14 years now. So I always had an inkling for entrepreneurship and a desire to do more. I enjoyed my job as a police officer, and it helped me to be able to do a lot of things and put me in a position to meet a lot of very successful people. But it was just a vehicle, is what I looked at it as, and it really just put me in the position that I'm in now. Honestly, a lot of the training as a police officer, I've been able to implement from a business side of things to just help me to grow in the business world where I'm at now.
Okay. And it's you mentioned your training as a police officer. There's Julian popping in right here. You say hi, buddy.
Hi.
Hey, Julian, how you doing?
He said, "How are you doing?"
Hi. Good.
I'll be right with you. Okay, buddy.
Okay.
Give me a few minutes. The challenges of being an entrepreneur, right? But it's also one of the benefits, one of the perks. I get to spend time with them. So, I was saying this past weekend, I facilitated a forum between some Denver police officers and a population of young minority kids from the Denver neighborhood, and I got a chance to sit down with one of the officers, and I was really surprised at all the mental training that you guys that you went through, and that police officers go through. I had no idea that they were built up and fortified so strong with technical skills and mental skills. And, of course, I knew about the firearm training and the physicality. So let me just say that I admire. That's another reason I admire you. So now that you're working with OG and you're in this leadership position, has your strategy always been clear as far as the success that you're enjoying now? Have you always known the path to take?
It's so funny, and this is something Rod Smith, who's my business partner, used to play for the Denver Broncos. We've had this conversation in regards to our path started, both of us, at a very early age.
Mhm.
He goes all the way back to when he was 12 years old. Mine is probably roughly in about that same age, 14, 15, but definitely at 17. I remember making a decision that I wanted to be a police officer then, and everything that I did after that was going in that direction. So it makes life, once you have a purpose and you know what it is that you want to do, it makes it so simple to be able to follow a path, because now
Mhm.
every decision that you make, you're making it based off of, okay, does this get me closer to my goal faster? Does this keep me on track to my goal? Is this a distraction from achieving my goal? And you can make the decisions, based off of, as you're asking
Right.
yourself those questions, you can make the decisions to which how you're going to respond to the new dilemma or new opportunity that's presented to you. And we both, Rod and I, have read a book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. It's actually written, I think, in like 1907. It was written before Think and Grow Rich.
Oh,
And
okay.
it talks about, whether on accident or on purpose, there's some universal rules and principles to success. And again, whether you're intentionally following those principles or you're just doing it by accident, you can't help but have the success. And for Rod and I, and probably yourself as well, before you got into personal development and growing yourself and helping others, there were things you were doing and everything was aligning right, correctly, and you were achieving the success. It was on accident because you didn't know the principles, and you didn't know a specific order. You just knew, okay, this is what I need to do. And then once you know the order and understand the principles, it accelerates the success. So, I guess to answer your question in a long way, I realized that, okay, I had some things that I wanted to do, and I just told myself, I always ask those questions. Is this new thing that's coming up, is this going to keep me on track for my goal? Or is it going to distract me from my goal? And then I would make the decision based off of my answer, and it just continued to propel me closer and closer to that goal.
Well, and that's a great answer. Don't feel as if you have to keep your answers concise because, I mean, the more information that I've always let, when you tell me things, I absorb it. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I like one of the things I enjoy about our conversations is you help me recognize things that I may have known but did not necessarily perceive. And
Yeah.
that's one of the principles that I've always looked at is, um, if you have a goal, no matter what it is, when opportunities come to you or challenges, you can look and see really closer. Is this a shortcut or is this a detour?
Mm,
Um, and staying on that, that's a wonderful thing. The other thing that I think always helps me is knowing what my motivations are. Um, Julian, who just came in here, popped in his head. Of course, that's one of my motivations.
yeah.
I have several motivations that I've clearly written down and identified, so that helps me stay on the path. What about you? What are the things that motivate you? And
Yeah, it's a good
can you just
question.
expound on that?
It was funny when he popped in and you were saying the challenges of entrepreneurship. I was thinking to myself, but it's also your inspiration for
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship. It's your why, why you do what you
Mm-hmm.
do. And again, you have him in front of you a lot of the time, most of the time, where again your inspiration is always there. So it's a, in that regards, when you're trying to do some things and he needs your attention, it can be a challenge. but probably most of the time it's an inspiration for you. And that's the same thing for me. See, my kids are my inspiration, because I grew up, and I think we can both kind of relate. I know your father was with the fire department. I grew up in a
Uh-huh.
place where I didn't necessarily have a lot. My mom did what she could, and she provided as best as she could. But I grew up not having a lot. I grew up not being able to experience the world. So that was something for me, even as a police officer. So as once I became a police officer, achieved that goal. Now the goal became, okay, become successful with this, and then
Uh-huh.
I started looking at entrepreneurship because I wanted to be able to provide for my kids from an education standpoint. They both went to private schools. My son still is in a private school. I
Uh-huh.
wanted to be able to give them opportunities to see the world. So I just came back from a cruise with my son, where again he went to Mexico. He was around like-minded individuals like myself, very successful, very
Right.
wealthy people, that were feeding into him. And that's kind of been the added piece also, is that I'm giving him information at 12 years old, and it really started when he was 9. He's
Uh-huh.
getting information that I didn't get until I was in my 40s, and it's about creating
Right.
success. And I know
Right.
Julian is already getting that information, at a very early age. So they're going to be much more equipped to create success, create it very quickly for themselves, because they're armed with the necessary tools that we're feeding into them now. So really the why has been my kids, but it's from an aspect of being able to give them the things that so they don't want for anything, and being able to give them, also arming them with the tools to be able to create their own success. Because I know my son, seeing me do what I do
Uh-huh.
with this business and having the success that I have, it lets him know that anything is possible. I mean, you can go from being a police officer to a very successful entrepreneur. You can go from being, a high school dropout to a gentleman with a PhD. I know I'm talking about on that. But again,
Right.
there's so many stories of people that have beat the odds, and they beat the odds not by luck. It was because of determination. It was because of effort and hard work. It was because of belief, and it was because of having a very strong why in
Uh-huh.
regards to what it is that they were trying to do.
Yeah, man, hey, you about to go to church up in here, brother. uh, hey, you touched on something that again, I'm loving how this conversation is going, just because we're whenever we talk, I get to know more about you, which is always more inspiring and educational to me.
Yeah.
So you had said something when you knew at a very young age that you wanted to be a police officer. And so
Hmm.
once you became an officer, your next goal was to be successful at it. Um, so two questions. When you set your goals, how do you make them measurable? And what are your three biggest goals right now?
You cut out on. I heard, "What are your three?" and then I didn't hear anything after
Oh,
that.
your three biggest goals right now.
Okay. All right. How do I make them measurable? Number one, I have, and I guess we've come. I've always heard short-term goals, long-term goals, but
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of come to a place now where I have my 90-day goals, and then
Okay.
I have my big goals. Is how
Mm-hmm.
I categorize it. And one thing that I've learned from my mentor, Mr. Rod Smith and Mr. Holton Buggs, is that you should. It sounds odd, but just hear me out on it. You should never reach your goals. And what we mean by that, when we say that, is that just as you can see yourself, okay, you set a goal, you're almost there. Stretch yourself, push it past where you said you were going to go. And we do that from a volume standpoint in the business, or an income standpoint, where just as we see ourselves getting ready to hit a certain amount of volume, or revenue in the
Mm-hmm.
business, we say, okay, that's done. We're 10,000 away from it. That's done. let's push it out another 50,000. Um, so I always keep myself, because you think about it, if you reach the goal, you stop. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times when you stop growing. You stop. If you stop, you think you reach yourself a goal from a personal development standpoint, and you stop growing. And that's the one thing that, when you stop growing, you're dying at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I never want to reach my goals. And I always have the bigger goal that's out there. And even with that goal, as I get closer to it, I make it even bigger. And one thing I learned with that, again, with Rod Smith, he kind of shared how when he was going through the NFL, being an undrafted free agent, he started on the practice squad. I think his
Mm-hmm.
first year, eventually made the roster. Then he got to a point where he's making millions of dollars a year on contracts,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about how he had put a number on paper about 2 or 3 years before he got his one of his biggest contracts, and he was upset with himself when the day came that he got that number. He received it in the contract, because he
Mm-hmm.
said he should have believed bigger, and he should have put a bigger number. He should have stretched
Right.
himself, because again, he put a number that said, okay, this sounds reasonable. It's still a huge number for most people, but it was a reasonable number. And he
Right.
should have stretched himself to a much bigger number, because if would have done that, he would have got that as well. So that's one thing that we're always talking about, is stretching, because when you're stretching, you're causing yourself to grow. You're becoming
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
like when you're in the gym and you're working out and you're burning, the muscles are burning. You're allowing them to get stronger, and you're growing. The body is growing, and it's the exact same thing that we're doing over here, and it's all through goal setting.
Man, Barry, if you hit on any more of my talking points, man, I'm gonna start hiring you out for some public speaking. Because I mean, obviously, better than average, be better than average. People look at that when I usually say that's the name of my company, and I know some people get offended. They won't tell me that to my
Hmm.
face, but they take it as being judgmental. That I'm
Yeah.
saying that you need to be better than somebody else, which is not necessarily the thing. Is it's saying that you're always shooting for a ever moving target.
Hmm.
You want to be better than just average, the average, settling for more, less than what you're capable.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And if you're around people who think it's okay to not try to be successful, then and you're capable of it, then yes, you need to be better than the average people you hang around. And then when you move up to that next echelon, you need to push and challenge yourself to to be the best or better than, or not better than, but to be better than you currently are right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I hear you 100%. I always say that the only comfort zone that you should ever be in is the womb or the casket,
Yeah.
and eventually you have to come out of the womb, and the casket. Well, that's the ultimate comfort zone. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I want to move on. I want to ask you. You've mentioned Rod a lot, and I haven't. I've gotten the chance to meet him, but I haven't got a chance to know him yet. But between you and Brandon Marshall, I've heard a lot of great things about him. I had to
Mhm.
smile ear to ear when I saw Brandon's commercial this year for the NFL
Yeah.
50-year anniversary, and they asked him who was one of the best people in the NFL or helped him out in his career, and he mentioned Rod. I said, well,
Yeah.
that should be Rod's marketing piece right there for all his Organo Gold stuff. Um, is there one piece of advice that sticks out that Rod gave you that's helped you out so far?
Wow, one piece. It's hard to say. I mean, there's been just so many, but because I can tell you, over the last 3 years, the person I was 3 years ago was, I was, clay and just ready to be formed,
Mm-hmm.
and I got into the hands of Picasso, and and he's been working with me and forming me. So honestly, a lot of times people will say, well, you sound just like Rod, and people tell him,
Mm-hmm.
well, you sound just like Holton Buggs, who's both of our mentors. But it's again being around the right people. For these last 3 years, I can tell you the development that I've had from a spiritual standpoint, from a personal growth standpoint, has just been phenomenal. One thing, I guess, I'm gonna give you one thing that I remember him saying to me very early on,
Mm-hmm.
when again, we're just getting to know one another, but we're doing business together, and it's something that we both say all the time now, and it's give us 1% of your trust, and we'll earn the other 99%. And it's not just a saying for us, we mean that when we
Mm-hmm.
say that. And so it's literally, because I meet so many brand new people that are looking at this opportunity. We don't have a relationship. We're building a rapport with one another, but they see the business and they say, you know what, this makes sense, but can I trust this guy? I don't know him, and so we just ask, you got to give us something. So we just say 1%, and we're going to do everything in our power to earn that other 99%. And what I love about it is some of the leaders that I have in my organization that I didn't know 3 years ago, some of the other distributors that have joined the business that I didn't know 3 years ago, they will get in front of the room and they will say they earned it. Very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, they earned that trust because they did what they said they were going to do, and they haven't stopped doing that. So, I would say that saying, but not just the saying, actually going out and doing just what we said is something that I've taken from him, and that we both just continue to build our business off of that, building that trust.
Okay. Well, if I may, that sounds like integrity. That just sounds like the ultimate definition of integrity.
Yeah.
Um, which is awesome, especially in business in general. When we see that there are corporations who are less than, we see
Yeah.
politicians who are less than, or who have less than the integrity that they expect everybody else to hear. But for a network marketing company, and you hear them out all the time, you hear about network marketing companies that are scams and they're taking people's money. For you to have that
Mhm.
testimony right there, that speaks volumes to not only the company itself, but to you and Rod. So
Yeah.
let me say I do admire that.
Yeah.
Uh, and you mentioned that when you first started working with Rod, he was you were clay. To use that's a great analogy. Was there a certain were there any skills? Was there any one particular skill or habit that you developed from his mentorship, or even not even necessarily from his mentorship, but from when you first started with the business to where you are now? Is there a skill or habit that has most contributed to your success?
I think over time, we both have had conversations in regards to balance. And one thing that I've learned in this business,
Mm-hmm.
you're never, when you're running with this business, and especially when you have as many distributors as I have, and I have people that are calling me, I'm trying to help everyone. So I
Right.
am, from the outside perspective, I probably I'm off balance, but it's internally that it allows me to be able to function in that way where I'm balanced internally. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of explain that, where the external is, like, for instance, as soon as we get done here, I have a meeting with a group of realtors. I just left another meeting just before we did this one. That's typical of my day. Now, after my 11 o'clock meeting, which will go probably for 2 hours or so, I'll have a little bit of downtime, which is rare for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have a conference call at 6, and then I have another executive dinner tonight at 7. Typically, my entire day is full. So I am always running. So from the external, from what people see, it looks like, okay, this guy is always going. And people always ask me, how do you do that? I'm balanced internally. And that internal balance, I call it 120, 120, 120. It's
Mm-hmm.
360 degrees of balance. And it comes down to three. And these are three things that I really just picked up from Rod. I don't think he's really, we've never had the conversation about it. But these are three things that he's taught me, that when I'm in balance with these three things, there's nothing else on the external that can interrupt what I have going on internally.
Right.
So it's from a spiritual standpoint, that's 120 degrees of part of the balance, and that's something that, you know, again, growing up in church, you know, I've been you know, in the church for many years. But, you know, as a police officer working on Sundays, doing different things, I got away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reconnecting with my spirituality now. And then personal development. Personal development is something that is relatively new. It's probably been about the last 6-7 years that I've come into a better understanding and the power of personal growth. But that's another 120.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 120 is physical. My physical being, as far as what I'm putting into my body, how I'm taking care of my body through exercise and dieting, you know, becomes very important. Because if I have, let's say I have spiritual and I have the personal growth, but I'm not taking care of myself, I still wouldn't be able to run the way that I do. I would get tired. I would break down, you know, in at some point in the middle of the day, but I do
Mm-hmm.
it week after week after week. So that 360 degrees of balance is what allows me to work, you know, from a place of imbalance in the external part of the world.
Okay. Okay. Uh, it's funny. I'm laughing to myself over here as you mentioned the last aspect. The last 120 is being your physical. I remember. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. Well, your New Year's resolution was give up donuts.
Yeah.
How are you doing with that?
Well, I did it for a year, and that was the
Okay.
whole, because, you know, I just wanted to be able to say I did it, because I've never been able to do that before. So I did
Uh-huh.
it for the entire year. But, you know, the thing about it is I can give or take. You know, I joke about it all the time. You know, with my group, that I love donuts. But, you know, honestly, I mean, I can actually be in a room now, and donuts can be in a room, and they're actually going to be okay. I'm not going to devour them. But there was a time, me and Krispy Kreme were in the room. It was over for Krispy Kreme, you know. So yeah, so it's definitely, it was, um, in the beginning, it was definitely a challenge, but it really just came to a point where it's like, you know, I'm fine. There's other stuff that I can have.
Right.
And Yeah, but it was just realizing it was something that I really enjoyed, and being able to say, okay, I think it was 2014, I'm not going to eat any donuts, and actually being able to achieve it. Again, it was just one of those things where I realized, okay, if I set my mind to something, and stick to it, I can achieve anything in life that I want.
Right. Well, and that's awesome because I was kind of half teasing you, but I knew part of that story, and one of the things I always speak upon is, you know, obstacles are going to come, challenges are going to come, and it's about developing the skills and habits. Well, identifying those obstacles and understanding, like in your case, that uh, you know, you just wanted to build up some willpower and build up the ability to commit to something and do it. You know, that's a skill and habit that not a lot of people take time to cultivate. You know, I always say that looking at the obstacles that you face. So if say, for example, you want to lose weight, then you have to eliminate donuts from your diet. And then usually the skills and habits that you have to obtain in order to be successful directly correlate to whatever obstacles you're facing. So
Mm.
I admire you again for being able to take on that challenge. 'Cause I'll tell you, man, I've been working on losing weight all year. I wrote it down as one of my goals, and I'm getting better. I'm getting better, but it's been a struggle just to stay motivated. Not even motivated, to stay committed to doing the exercise and stay on the away from the things I shouldn't eat. So again, I admire you, Mr. Overton. Look, we're running a little short on time, but I do want to ask you a couple of questions before we wrap up. My first one is, what is your best piece? Well, yeah, I guess what would be the best piece of advice that you would give someone who is looking to follow in your footsteps, if you could do it in 10 words or less?
I would say
Uh-oh, did I lose you? Barry, you there?
did you lose me there?
Yeah, I lost you for a second.
Okay, yeah, I had a call come in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying, pick you a champion and find someone that has the things that you're trying to achieve, and follow them.
Okay, awesome. The next thing is, this is the month of gratitude, Thanksgiving, and you know me, I am always on my gratitude challenges. What are you most grateful for right now?
I would say honestly, the relationships that I've been able to create over the last, really probably over the last 20 years,
Mhm.
but particularly probably the last 5 to 6 years of very positive, inspiring people that I've been able to just learn from. Some of them are not necessarily people that have a lot
Mhm.
financially, but they have so much more, from the heart, or wisdom that I've
Mhm.
been able to tap into.
Okay, all right, that's awesome. In relationships, I always say you have to be powerfully, habitually, and deliberately grateful for every person that you encounter along the way, because they're either a lesson or a blessing, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then a last question for you, and we can wrap this up, is if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and want to learn more about the business opportunities that you and Organo Gold present, or just wanted to learn some more from you, what is the best way for them to be in contact with you?
Uh, Honestly, the best way is by cell phone. That number is 303-668-5433. But also by email address, and it's Barry, Barry, Sells, Sells, Denver at msn.com. And then also my website, if they wanted to go just to get more information, they could go to uh, barryoverton.organogold.com, just to get more information on the company. But yeah, definitely reach out by cell phone. I'm very open to that.
Okay, great, great. I will go ahead, once I upload this and get it loaded, I'll have a graphic with all the information there so people can see. Barry, I have to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule doing this with me. Um, Again, I want to just let people know I deliberately chose to speak with you because you're one of my mentors, you're one of my friends, and you're one of the people who I see naturally exhibiting the philosophies and the techniques that I talk about setting better than average goals, achieving better than average goals, and living life by the better than average philosophy and principles. So I got nothing but love for you, man. I really appreciate all the
Likewise.
time that you took out. And we will talk soon. We'll connect real soon here, okay?
All right, that sounds great.
All right, thanks, Barry. Tell Rod I'm waiting to sit down and have this same discussion with him.
All right.
I'm waiting for my mind to be blown. Brandon was smiling from ear to ear. I want to smile from head to head.
All right.
All right,
Yeah, I
thanks,
definitely will.
brother.
All right, you take care.
You too. Thank you.